Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to blogging on the LinkedIn publishing platform, and a roundup of all the latest tech stories in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
It seems everywhere you look online, you'll find people claiming to be innovative leaders, whilst meeting rooms and boardrooms across the globe are full of businessmen and women getting giddy about innovation. There's an increasing reliance on technology. The needs and wants of customers constantly changing, coupled with an urgency to stay ahead of the competition, all of which has ensured that innovation is the most overused buzzword in business. Surely there is more to innovation than just another buzzword. But what is it? Can we define what it is? I've invited Rich Haigh to set the record straight. Welcome, Rich.
Yeah, mate.
Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your background.
So, I originally come from a software development background. I've been doing that about 15, 16 years now. I've been lucky enough over my time to work on a few projects that people would probably call innovative in one form or another. Innovation, I completely agree that it's something you hear so much, but I think so often people don't really know why they're using that term. So it's very interesting for me.
Absolutely. Apologies for asking, but just to clear up any confusion, what is innovation? What isn't innovation? And why is it important?
What is innovation? And more importantly, what isn't? I mean, for me, you look at innovation and you look at what people talk about when they talk about innovation. Let's say you do a Google search for innovation or new innovations, and you'll see hundreds of news articles talking about all kinds of things, from medical innovation to technology, across a whole range of topics. Something which I've believed in for a long time now is innovation can be anything you want it to be, but the two most important things for me is it's got to have a need. You've got to have a requirement. You've got to have something that you need to resolve or something you need to fix in order for it to actually have any value. But for it to be innovative, well, that's really interesting because innovation can be in context. So what I mean by that, and what I mean by saying innovation in context, is something that may be innovative for me or in my role or where I work may be completely different to someone else's situation. So Google, Microsoft, Apple, the likes of 3M, they have huge innovation budgets. They invest millions, but they're looking for innovation on a global scale that's going to change them and set them apart as a market leader. What you're looking at in terms of a small to medium enterprise maybe, or even, your corner shop, they may have an innovation. But for them, their innovation may be, I've got a new till, or I've got some new stock control software. And that for them is the innovation. The innovation is how they use it. Innovation is about taking a piece of technology and maybe looking at it in a different way, putting it into a new context, using it in a way that it wasn't originally designed for, but actually you're taking the parallels of its use and applying it to your situation. There's so many terms that, innovation isn't about one thing. It's not just about technology. It's not just about doing things differently. It's about fitting a solution that meets your needs in your space. So, it's just a wide area. And it's something I can talk about for hours.
No, it's a fascinating subject. I mean, but how do you actually embed innovation culture into a business? And what kind of mistakes do you see you made the most?
So it's really easy for people. I mean, you take a look at where innovation has been successful. So take a company. I'll give you 3M as an example. So historically, for 3M and Google for that matter, they spent time to give people the space to go and develop their own projects, to lead their own projects, and take that time to work on things that they have a vested interest in personally. That's one of the real key things, is letting people take their idea and run with it, take a lead on it, own that product or own that solution. You may not have the skills to deliver it yourself. You may not have the contacts to do it. But that's where those companies in those environments have provided that support to say that you can bring people in and they will support you in building that team and in taking that forwards because they can see the value in it. Whether the value comes from a commercial game or the value comes from something, a lesson learned, that's the key to it, really. Innovation is not always about succeeding. It's about the old saying of fail fast. If you can fail fast, then you can move on to the more successful things later and you can learn quicker. When it fails, when innovation and when it fails in companies and when it fails in groups is when people bring it in but don't really understand why they're bringing it in.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen situations where a management team or management structure have gone, we need to innovate. So how are we going to innovate? We're going to form an innovation team, or we're going to form an innovation group or an innovation forum. And that team gets formed but has no real focus because they haven't got a need. They haven't got a requirement that says, we can't find a solution for this, so how do we resolve it? Or we've got to meet this requirement, but we haven't got the budget, or we haven't got the technology, or we haven't got... What is the constraint? Because the constraints can drive that innovation. But it's when people don't really understand why they're doing it, or if you have a solution, you're trying to find a fit for it, that's when it kind of fails. At the end of the day, people have got to want to do it. It's very much about people. It succeeds because of people. It succeeds because people believe in what they're building, believe in the project, believe in the concept, and want to take things forward and want to drive it. You've got to have people you've got to give the people that freedom and that scope and that trust to say that they're going to take that idea, run with it and develop it into something that's great. But from a leadership point of view, you've got to be hands off. You've got to take that step back and you've got to let the guys have space. You've got to let them look at it and make mistakes because that's how the great innovations come out. It's giving the guys the freedom. It's giving them the control. It's not trying to constrain it with processes around new product development that we must go through these steps.
Mm-hmm.
Give the guys the principles. Give the guys the freedom to follow those principles and make their own decisions based on their experience. And then you'll get proper innovation.
Is resistance to change still an obstacle, or are people generally more accepting now?
I think people can see the value. I think, everyone says it. The internet is a huge, has opened up a huge mine of information, and it's so easy now to kind of see news stories a lot faster than they would have done. You would have never heard, if you think back, the Post-it note, right? That was a massive innovation for what it actually is. So simple, yet such a huge benefit. But you would have never heard the story behind the Post-it note when it was actually developed and when it was released, right, unless you'd have gone and got a periodical or picked up an actual article. Now, you go to Google News or you go to, you pick up your phone and you go to a tech blog, or it's just there and it's pushed at you because it's so much easier. So the resistance to change on that, people can see the value. They don't understand how to leverage it and get to that point. But people are more accepting and more understanding that if we want to do things better, if we want to get that unique selling point to go that little bit beyond our competitors, or just to make somebody's life that little bit different, we've got to change. And I think that has, the fact that people can now contact much easier, the communications have been hugely improved, and what's happened with regards to technology specifically, but other areas, it's the mine of information out there now has made it so much easier for people to just accept change. I really believe that people are more accepting of change if they've got the information at their fingertips, and now everybody has.
Wow. Quite inspiring stuff, right? Of course, business leaders are more concerned with return on investment. It's obviously the most asked questions, but how do you actually measure success of innovation?
I think I kind of touched on it earlier. If you get that $1 million product, your innovation has succeeded. But it's about that long term. You can build it and you may sell 10 million units of whatever it is you developed. But if that 10 million units only lasts for 12 months, what do you do for the next 12 months? You can't kind of cash in on that constantly. It's not a model that you can sustain. It's about looking for that that longer term view of, okay, how do we take these forward? How do we give it a lifespan? What are we going to project this forward with? And also, don't forget, a lot of innovations fail. We hear about all the successful ones. We hear about the great success that Apple had when they released the iPhone, and then when they released the iPad, it was game changing. You don't necessarily hear too much about the failed ones. You hear a little bit, so you think, well, Google Glass. Google Glass is an interesting one, okay? So they came out with this great concept. So many capabilities. But what it kind of comes down to is it didn't really have the use cases. So it was released to early adopters to come up with those use cases and bring things back. What they've then gone is Google, and absolute hats off to them for doing this. They've then gone, hang on, this isn't quite working. So they've pulled it back. Now, some people may see that as a failure. Actually, they've learnt loads just by doing that, by releasing it. They've learned that the technology as a platform works, and there are people out there who want it. What they've also learned is they've learned that they need to look at it in a slightly different way, whether that's consumerizing it, whether that's taking it out as more of a business tool, or how they're going to adapt that is going to be really interesting, how they take that forwards. And, I remember seeing the articles about when they said they were withdrawing it. So everyone kind of very much doomsayers, oh no, it's end of Google Glass. But they've taken it on board, and the reports that you're kind of seeing now is that they brought it through a different product line. So they've learned, they're changing, it's going back to that idea of change to make a difference, change to improve it. And, in doing that, they're going to come out with a better product. And that's kind of the real value on this is even if you don't get the monetary value, you get the experience, you get the learning, you get the knowledge that you can take forward to future projects. They may not be the same space at all, but you've learned something, and that is the most important part of any of this. Any innovation project, team, R&D type piece of work, if you learn from it and you come out of it with some solid knowledge and some solid learning that you can take forwards, then it is never going to be a failure. In the eyes of management and in the eyes of your P&L, yeah, you've invested something, but it's showing that value in then, okay, taking that knowledge that you've learned and taking that forward.
So essentially the big message from that is failure is a great opportunity to learn and do things better.
Massively. Don't be afraid to fail. Never be afraid to fail.
Also interestingly, I think Amazon's Chief Technology Officer spoke at a conference a few years ago and advised that innovation is a business revolution, not a technology revolution. And also made the point that they don't even have a research and development department and actually believe that everyone must come up with new business ideas within the company, claiming that innovation really is about people. And if you can persuade your staff, it doesn't always have to be synonymous with pure science or gorgeous gadgetry. That'll be the real breakthrough.
Completely. At the end of the day, it will only succeed with the right people and giving them the right environment to succeed, having the trust and having the ability to believe that if someone comes to you with an idea and they say that this is a great idea, having the belief to go with them and to let them have the freedom to take the lead on it and take it to fruition, because anybody can come up with an idea. It doesn't have to be a technology idea. It can be a process innovation. It can be a change to a way of working. It can be looking at another area or another industry and seeing the parallels between where you are and where they are. A great example is looking at my background, software development. So the parallel between sort of the agile methodology and lean specifically and lean manufacturing and just-in-time manufacturing. Someone was smart enough to look at what Toyota had been doing and to see the parallels between what we do in software development and to look at how you can make those jumps across and carry those same principles across to make the software development process more efficient, better value, deliver faster. Exactly the same as Toyota and Japanese manufacturers have been doing for many years before. It's not always about technology. It's about people. It's about process. Those jumps between industries, those jumps between technologies and between sort of medical experiments and things like that. That whole world is only made by people. It's only made by somebody having an idea and somebody thinking about it, but then having the freedom and the capability to go and take it forward.
Wow, it's obviously a subject you're incredibly passionate about. If any of our listeners out there would also like to have a chat with you about innovation and best approaches and methodologies, what's the best way of reaching out to you?
Guys, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at Richmondo. And you can get me through my website, which is richhaigh.co.uk.
Fantastic. I'll put that on the show notes just for anyone listening as well. But other than that, I just want to give you a massive thank you for your time today, Rich. Really appreciate you taking the time to come in.
No worries, mate. Anytime, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.